how can you use having said that and as a matter of fact in English? What's the difference between instead of and rather than? Can you say instead without of, or are they always together? We'll answer these questions and more in this episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, my friend?
As a matter of fact, I'm doing really well. Now that Spain is starting to open up and we can go outside and do things and be in the sunshine. Having said that, it's very hard. Did you see what I did there? It's very hard for businesses who are starting to try to earn money, and learning a language, again, is going to be difficult going to school. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm coping well. I'm managing well under the circumstances, like everybody in Spain and many countries around the world. We have had to learn to live in new ways. Craig and I are not together at the moment. Yet again, we are recording from our own houses because we're not allowed to meet up because of government restrictions. So I'm in my study in my house, he's in his, and we're doing it through internet. So hopefully the quality of the audio is good, but if you hear a few imperfections, please appreciate that it's harder because we're not actually together. But life goes on. Things can be done.
In fact, I haven't seen you since the end of February, have I? We're now in May.
Yeah, could be. End of February. It could well be, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Long time.
Craig, can you think of any really useful, even educational way of filling your time from home?
Well, I'm pleased you asked me that, Reza, because the first thing that comes to my mind is our sponsor, italki. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a very good chance you want to improve your English. And we think it's a really good way to get a private teacher using Skype or other conferencing software online to get personal one-to-one teaching. And you can do that through italki. It's a way to find a teacher that really fits with what you need for your English. Perhaps you're preparing for an exam. Maybe you just want to have conversational English and work on speaking with a teacher. Or maybe you want to go really deep into the grammar and expand your vocabulary. Whatever your needs are, you'll be able to find a teacher who can prepare lessons for you that exactly meet your needs and help you go forward very quickly with your English. If you would like to find out more information on how italki teachers can help you with your English, they are offering a $10 credit for people who sign up through our podcast. So go to the show notes for this episode, 313. So that's inglespodcast.com/313. Just click on the italki image or the link in the show notes, and that will take you directly to their webpage where you can sign up and start studying with your new teacher. And Reza and I would like to thank italki very much for sponsoring Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Let's move on now, and we've got a voice message from Alejandro, who's from Colombia, but he's living in Australia. Recently, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've had quite a few messages from Australia. This is the third person in a couple of weeks, isn't it, Craig?
Yeah, we had Carlos from Australia last week, and we've had quite a few listeners recently listening in Australia.
And then there's Alberto, who's been there for a while. So good day, all you guys down under. Hope you're doing well.
Yep, good day, and hope you're having a good day there in Australia.
Hello, Craig and Reza. My name is Alejandro. I am from Colombia, but currently I am living in Australia. So I already have sent a voice message, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, which Craig have responded me very kindly. I am very glad for that, because honestly for me it's unbelievable that a person as Craig have responded me direct my message. This is something very impressive to me. So I don't want to spend much time saying greetings, because you already know that all of your listeners are grateful with all that you do for us. So as Reza says, let's go into the business. So I have a lot of questions, of course, because I consider that learning a language is something, it's a very long process, but you have to try to learn step by step, little by little. So I have many questions, but right now I would like you to help me to solve the next question about linking the expressions, like having said that, according to, as per that, in this order or ideas, something like that, all these expressions. But specifically, I think I still don't understand, for example, the expression having said that, because to me, as a Spanish speaker, I understand having said that like that you express some idea and you want to add more information. But it seems that in English, having said that is usually used to express a different opinion about it, about something, sorry. So could you please clarify me about a bit this topic, specifically this expression, having said that? Thank you. Okay, guys, this is all for the moment. I hope you are having a good time, even taking into account the current situation about coronavirus. So have a good one. See you.
As Alejandro says, well, actually, he tried to quote you. He said, let's go into the business, which you sometimes say at the beginning of a podcast, but you don't say it exactly like that, do you?
No, I often say, let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. In other words, let's start to do what we've come here to do.
So the phrasal verb Reza often uses, get down, means to start. Let's start with the business of the podcast. Let's begin with it. Let's get down to it. Let's get down to the business. Alejandro asks for help with linking expressions. Now, we've spoken about linking expressions very specifically on 2 separate podcasts. One was episode 55, so go to inglespodcast.com/55. The name of that podcast is Linking Expressions. And there's another one that will be useful for you, Alejandro. That's episode 179, more recently. And that one's called More Linking Expressions. Go to inglespodcast.com/179.
Who knows, in the future, we might even come out with the best of linking expressions, and then, as they used to do years ago with albums, the very best of linking expressions. So look out for future albums, podcasts.
It's like Rocky 6, Rocky 7, Rocky 8, The Return of Rocky. We could do the return of linking expressions, couldn't we? Or linking expressions revisited.
Linking expressions, the director's cut. Or the editor's cut in this case.
Good idea. Anyway, let's get down to business, because Alejandro...
can I interrupt you there, Craig?
Go ahead.
I liked it. It's one we could add. Anyway is a good linker, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you notice Craig said, anyway, let's get down to business? You can say anyway just to change from one subject to another, right? You say anyway, and then you change subject. Yeah, that's what he did. Did you notice? It's a really useful word, anyway.
Anyway, getting back to Alejandro's message, a very nice message. Thank you very much. Wonderful pronunciation. Very, very clear. Having said that, Alejandro, now having said that means una vez dicho eso. So I could say, having said that, there are one or two things that you could improve. Having said that. So it's when you want to give a different opinion about something. As you correctly said in your message, an example would be, he forgets most things. This is probably me. Craig forgets most things. But having said that, he always remembers my birthday. So what that really means is, despite what has just been said, despite what has just been said. And when you want to give a contrasting opinion, so you give one opinion, but then you want to contrast it with another comment, even though you think both things are true, you could say, for example, Apple products are expensive. Having said that, I must admit they're very well made.
So many people use that expression. Having said that, some people don't. Some people say, that being said. It's not so common, but it means the same thing. Here's an example. Pepito's reading, listening, and writing are all very good. That being said, his speaking needs to be improved. I could replace it with, having said that, his speaking needs to be improved. So that being said is a variation of having said that. Craig, would you say that being said is possibly a little bit more formal? Not so common, perhaps?
I definitely agree that it's not so common. My preferred expression will be having said that. I don't think I would say that being said. So maybe it's a little more formal, but as far as I'm concerned, it's definitely less common. Yeah, I would say having said that. Having said that. Next, we have a message from Douglas from Nicaragua.
Hi Reza, hi Craig. My name is Douglas and I am from Nicaragua. I would like to say thank you to you for all your effort making this podcast. I've been practicing and learning English for 2 years, I think, for myself. Just listening podcasts, listening music and watching YouTube videos and all these things, Also reading magazines, all this kind of things. And I got a question first, sorry. I would like to know the difference to use rather and instead. Also, I would like to know how can I use as a matter of fact. I can say it. That's all. Thank you again and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Douglas, for sending us your message. One thing you could improve with your message, Douglas, the preposition with listening. Remember, it's listening to. You correctly said watching YouTube because watching doesn't usually have a preposition. You watch something, watch the film, watch a YouTube video, etc. But you listen to something. So you listen to this podcast or you listen to music. So remember that preposition to with listening. And because you watch YouTube videos, you might be interested in a YouTube channel that my friend does called Simple English Videos. It's a very good channel for learning grammar and vocabulary and specifically the difference between British English and American English, because my friend Vicky, who is originally from the UK, creates videos with her husband Jay, who is American, and they're based in Philadelphia. So they very often contrast British English and American English in the same video. So check it out. Go have a look. You might enjoy that channel. It's called Simple English Videos. Reza, did you notice anything else in Douglas's message that you want to comment on?
Very good message, Douglas, and good questions. Good questions. Rather than, instead of, they are similar, but they're not exactly the same. And as a matter of fact, is a tricky thing to explain. Well, we're going to talk about it a bit now, but before we do that, Douglas, why not have a look at a previous podcast where we talk about rather and prefer. Rather and prefer are talked about in episode 248. So if you go to englishpodcast.com/248, there's some explanation there about the word rather compared to prefer. But Douglas's question was more about rather compared to instead. Well, rather than expresses a preference. For example, I like listening to podcasts and audiobooks rather than reading. So listening to podcasts and audiobooks are my preference compared to reading. That's rather than. Instead of is more concerned with suggesting that something replaces another thing. It's in place of. For example, it rained, so we stayed in instead of going to the beach. So our plan was going to the beach. But because it rained, our substitute plan or in place of the beach was staying in. So it rained, so we stayed in instead of going to the beach.
Another example would be, you feel like coffee, but Reza's making tea, and you say, "Hey, Reza, I'm sorry, can I have coffee instead of tea, please?" So you're replacing the tea with coffee. As a matter of fact, when we use instead without of, which we can do, we can use instead without the preposition, we usually put it at the beginning of the clause or the end of the clause. I'll give you an example. Reza couldn't go to Craig's flat to record, so we recorded on Skype instead. Another example, we won't be able to go on holiday this year, obviously. We can't travel, we can't go on holiday. Instead, we'll stay here in Valencia. So that's a new sentence. We won't be able to go on holiday this year, full stop. Instead, comma, we'll stay here in Valencia. So if I wanted to use the preposition, the same sentence would be, we'll stay here in Valencia instead of going on holiday abroad.
So basically, you add of if something's going to come after it, instead of what. If you say what, you got to have of. If you don't say what, you don't write of. Simple as that. That's true of a lot of expressions. People often ask me, is it a lot or a lot of? It depends. If you say a lot of what, you use of. If you don't say what, then no of. For example, do you like music? I like it a lot. No of. Do you have any money? Yes, a lot. Compare it to yes, a lot of money. Of money. So you add of if you're going to say what after of.
And one more point about Reza's example there with music and a lot. One mistake I often hear from Spanish speakers with expressions like a lot is they like to put it in the middle of the clause and not at the end. So I often hear, I like a lot music, or I like a lot tennis, or I like a lot the podcast. Put a lot at the end of the clause. So I like podcasts a lot. I like music a lot, or I like it very much. Put those adverbial expressions at the end.
So we hope, Douglas, that you're pretty clear up to now then on rather than, that's for preference, and instead of for substitution or replacement, let's say.
Your second question was about the expression as a matter of fact, which is very similar to in fact, de hecho, or en realidad in Spanish. Now, we often use this to correct someone or to disagree with someone, or perhaps to add something to what you have just said. Let's give an example. Can you think of anything, Reza?
Craig, I'd say you must be very bored staying at home all day.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm really busy. I'm working on a new project. As a matter of fact. So really I'm giving a contrasting view of what Reza thinks. I'm not bored. De hecho, I'm really busy. As a matter of fact, I'm really busy. Now, one thing about the pronunciation, because you've got lots of consonants and vowel sounds there, as a matter of fact, as a joins together. As a matter of, that connects as well. The of matter and the of connects. So matter of. And then the fact joins with the of because it's a very similar sound. So you don't hear the words very separately, like as a matter of fact. It's kind of like a chunk, un trozo of language, as a matter of fact, as a matter of fact. So it's very difficult to hear the individual words. Can you think of another example, Reza?
Yes, a very, very common misconception.
What's a misconception?
A misconception is when people presume they have the idea that obviously something must be true. It seems so basic and everybody seems to believe it, so it must be true. But it's not true. That is a misconception. And as a matter of fact, or in fact, are often used to clarify misconceptions. I'll give you an example. Many people around the world believe that Christopher Columbus, Colon, as you call him, that Christopher Columbus was Spanish. As a matter of fact, he was Italian. And that's not just my theory. It is a matter of fact. It's not a theory. It's categorically true. He was born in Italy and raised in Italy. He then came to Spain and worked for the Spanish government. So, in fact, he was Italian.
And here's an example of using as a matter of fact to add some information, to add something to what you've just said. And it's true. I'm doing more exercise now than I was a month ago. I'm doing more exercise now than I was a month ago. As a matter of fact, I've lost 2 kilos. So I'm adding more information with the linking expression as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact, I've lost 2 kilos.
That's a different use of as a matter of fact there, isn't it, compared to my use?
It's adding more information or adding a fact to what I said before. And these collections of words, these chunks, like as a matter of fact, these trozos de lenguaje, it's a good idea to learn them as complete phrases, I think. And similar expressions would be, I'm looking forward to, or that's really great, or I can't believe it, or you must be joking. So it's really useful to have those expressions memorized as a chunk of language, a piece of language, and then use them obviously in the correct situation with the correct intonation in the correct context. And now it's your turn to practice your English. We would love to hear from you. Now, I know you're probably driving in your car at the moment, or maybe you're doing exercise and listening with your earbuds. You might not be in front of your computer. So please write down this if you're interested in contacting us. Send us a voice message. And the address is speakpipe, speakpipe.com/Inglés podcast. That's the address to send us your voice messages. Reza, how can people contact us via email?
If you prefer to write, then you could write to Craig. His address is craig@inglespodcast.com, or me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you have more time on your hands these days because you are at home more and you'd like to study more English, we do have some courses for sale over at La Mención del Inglés. To have a look at those courses, go to store.mansioningles.net.
And as ever, a big thank you to all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast on the Patreon scheme. If you're interested in that, have a look at Patreon. That's Patreon, patreon.com/Inglés podcast, where you'll see that you can, for as little as $1 a month, get instant access to recent audio transcriptions if you want to donate a little bit of money. Totally voluntary. We appreciate all contributions. We'd love to thank all of our sponsors, but we haven't got time, so we can only thank the most recent new sponsors, who are
Rox Col, Soledad Alcaraz Plaza, Maria E. González, Fran Lopez. Thank you very much to you four and to all of our Patreon supporters. If you would like to be part of this group of supporters and receive our transcriptions that we write out every word we say on the podcast, for as little as $1 per month, you can join us on Patreon. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/Ingles podcast. What's next week, Reza?
As a matter of fact, I've forgotten.
You've forgotten. Well,
Yeah.
Let me help you improve your memory. If you listen next week, and you might be listening, Reza, as a matter of fact, we're going to speak about memory techniques.
That's it.
Yeah, you remember now. How to improve your memory. That's going to be useful for Reza and for anyone who is having problems remembering vocabulary and other things. So please join us next week. If you missed last week's episode, we spoke about beyond the English language. Go listen to that. And of course, we have over 300 podcast episodes that you can go back to listen to improve your English. Until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.